A little update on the prayer shawls that I mentioned recently. The blue one, I think I did post some pictures of that in my last video, one of my last videos. So I will add finished pictures of that has been gifted, and I actually got to see the recipient wearing it on Zoom, and she just looked beautiful in it. I'm really pleased. Yeah, I'm pleased about that one. I just had this vision in my head, and it all worked out, and she loved it. And so I'm happy about that. The other one, last week sometime, I held up a blanket, a baby blanket that I found at a rummage sale or something, half finished with extra yarn, and was talking about how I was going to maybe salvage some of that yarn to make another prayer shawl. Shortly after I recorded that, so that night I actually pulled it all apart. The next morning, I spoke to a friend who was actually the recipient of one of the previous prayer shawls that I've talked about, and she asked if I'd started anything yet, and I told her that I hadn't really, and she was really into the idea of trying to do one herself, because it meant so much for her to receive it, and she felt like it was a really good challenge for her at this moment. And she's also very close to the person that it was for. And I said, of course, I was very happy to make it myself, but just as happy to pass it on. That really makes a lot of sense. And I also, with these projects, I find them kind of emotionally exhausting. Yeah, they are. It takes a lot out of you, and they're very rewarding and very, I love doing it, but it does take a lot out of you. So I kind of felt like, yeah, you know what? Okay, you take on this one. I've done 3 already this year. You take on this one. That feels fine. So, an hour later, the same friend called me back and said, somebody else in our community had suffered a horrible loss, and so could I start on that shawl? Of course, of course, of course, of course, of course, of course. So when I say, it's hard to explain. When I say that it's exhausting, it feels like a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of responsibility, there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of everything that goes into it, but I don't want to make it sound like I don't want to do it, because that's not the way it is at all. I very much wanted to make this one. It was very important to me. But it's kind of like when I do a lot of handmade things for my children, we have Christmas and then birthdays right after Christmas, right in a row. And that can really, there's an intensity to that, where like I love making them things. And when they were little especially, I used to do a whole lot of making for them for those events. And it was great, and I really wanted to do it, and yet at the end of it there was still like like there was a relief that I could move on to, anything that was less, without a timeline, without I could pick up any project and it wouldn't matter. It wasn't when you're, working to a timeline to please other people, to, that kind of thing. And I think the prayer shawls have an element of that, because I always feel like I want to get them out as soon as possible for the person, to be a comfort as soon as possible. But also, there's also with them a very deep emotional and connection of just, yeah. So this go round, I couldn't really sleep and couldn't really stop thinking about the recipient. So it took me around 3 days to complete the shawl. because I was up at night working on it. To complete the knitting, there was a lot of ends to work in, so I've done that the last 2 days, 1.5 days. I've just tried to block it with steam blocking on the iron. It's acrylic yarn. I hate acrylic yarn. It didn't work particularly well, but so be it. Anyhow, here we have. So that was from that yarn that I showed you last week. And this is it now. And it's about to be dropped off on a porch to hopefully wrap the recipient in love. It's the closest thing to a hug that I could send right now, so very happy to do that. I don't remember the name of the pattern off the top of my head, but I'll include it somewhere in the video. The only changes I made was, it was supposed to be in 2 patterns, so it was just this garter part, and then the lace part was 2 different colors. I added in a 3rd color because I didn't really have a whole lot of any 1 or 2 colors. There's still some little spots of water just from trying to block it. They're not stains. So I added in the 3rd color for the stripes, and then when I finished, it should have been done about here, was as far as the pattern went to, and it didn't feel long enough, so I kept going and made it a bit longer. And it's possible I didn't do gauge at all. I didn't check my gauge at all because it was a shawl and whatever. So it's possible I wasn't getting gauge, and that's why it was smaller than felt right. But I don't know. So there. Got my necklace. It's asymmetrical. And yeah, so I hope that she likes it and that it sits. And if nothing else, I hope that it carries a lot of love and comfort.